Hey, innovators and investors. Welcome back to Innovation and Income, the channel dedicated to guiding you on your financial journey. In part one of our series, From Minimum Wage to 100K, we explore the pivotal question, what career path should you choose to transform your earnings? Join us as we reveal how to research the most promising career options for you, share insider tips, and set you on the path to financial success. Ready to take the first step? Let's dive in. For part one of our series, we're going to focus on the really difficult question we've probably all been asked when we were young and growing up, and that's, what do we want to do with the rest of our life? What profession do we want to choose? What job do we want to focus on? And it's really a difficult question because there are so many options out there. And I'm not going to come on here and say that you should pick this profession because it has great opportunities or great earning potential, or you shouldn't pick the profession because it's going to change so much in the near future. But rather, I want to help you to use the research tools in your hands to make decisions that are right for you. Because by having this vision in mind, it's going to give us a destination, a place by which we can have all of our efforts focused on getting to this end goal. If we don't have this in mind, we're going to waste our time, waste our effort, and waste our finances rowing in the wrong direction, only to make corrections later on in life. So let's talk a little bit about some tools that we can utilize to try to narrow things down and a few items that we can keep in mind when we're looking there. So some of the best tools that are available right now are some of the artificial intelligence items. It's really made research much easier, and all that artificial intelligence does is it takes all the different potential search criteria that's out there. So instead of going to your search engine of choice, whether it be Google or DuckDuckGo or Yahoo, you would typically go in and start looking up information. And then you have to sift through all of the ads and all of the extra text and volumes to try to pull data together to come up with some form of conclusion just to get a simple question answered. What artificial intelligence is a great tool because it allows us to distill it down to just the answer to the question we're looking for. And best of all, we can ask it in very either specific or broad tense. So for my purposes, my AI of choice, I like to use Microsoft's Copilot. It's based on OpenAI's ChatGPT backend, and it doesn't require a sign-in. As you can see here, if you look up on the corner here, I'm not signed in with any particular account, but I can utilize it, put information into it, and get information out of it. It doesn't require me to put an account in or have anything related to me as I'm putting this information in. So one of the things that make this a great tool for answering this question of what profession do we want to focus on? We can start to ask questions that help to bring it into focus. Number one, we have to make a decision about where we want to focus our efforts. So from a location perspective, if you're starting out early, maybe you don't have roots set in or don't have a family or don't have anything that's holding you in a particular location, location itself is a big determining factor as far as where you can have the greatest opportunities. So we're going to go ask Copilot some broad question, and we're going to ask it, what is the best city or town, if I spell it correctly, and actually even spelling, getting it close enough. That's the nice thing about AI. It's not too stringent. It does a good job of telling what it is that you meant to type. So what's the best city or town that has the best ratio of cost of living, the amount of money it costs to live in a particular area, to food, shelter, just basics, to earnings potential. So this would give us an idea of for what it costs to live in a particular area and what the general salaries can facilitate, because some places have a really low cost of living, but also they have a really low earning potential that is commensurate or very close to. So if we look at what we have here, we can see that it's picked up McKinney, Texas as a location. It's saying that the median household income is around $113,000 and a relatively low cost of living, resulting in an estimated income to expense ratio of 1.6. So it's essentially saying that the cost of living is lower than a lot of other areas, but the actual earnings potential is higher. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this McKinney, Texas, and we're going to feed our AI our location. So location is McKinney, Texas. And all we're going to do is tell it what it is. It'll give us a little bit of background on it. All we're doing now is we're telling the AI to put things into context for us. So all the questions we're going to be asking about are related to McKinney, Texas. So now we have a location in mind. And again, you can put your location in to get an idea of what is available to you. And if you're in an area that's going to be more difficult or less difficult in order to kind of get to your financial goals. So next thing we want to do now that we have a location is think about market demand. What are some of the job roles that are in demand for a particular area? So let's do this. And let's say top 10 in-demand professions include a salary range. So what this will do, it's going to go out again to the greater of the internet, and it's going to pull in the details of the top 10 professions, in-demand professions for McKinney, Texas. It's going to give us some salary ranges so we get an idea. It's important to understand ranges because a starting salary is going to be just as important as the top end of the range. A lot of times we like to look at the bigger number and assume that that's what we're going to get into, but we are going to start on the lower end of the range. We're assuming that we're going in with no experience when we're making these decisions, so we always have to have our sights set at those starting points. So looking through some of these, we can see that we have registered nurse, we have customer sales representative, sales associate, we have electrical engineer, delivery driver. So we have quite a few different roles and professions. Looking at some of these, we can see that patient care technician is in there. We can see nurse is in there a few different times. So we can see what those ranges and salaries are as well. So two things to keep in mind. We want to make sure that while we want to balance cost and hitting our financial goals from a salary perspective, we also want to make sure it's going to be a profession that is in alignment with who we are, something that we're good at. So if we look at some of these professions, we can do a little bit of digging into them based on their job titles. And additionally, we can look at some of the roles that will be necessary to get to there. Again, this is starting to get an idea of what realm to take a closer look into. Something also to note, and some of the things that don't necessarily show up in these charts when you do this, is you also have other roles and professions that are always in demand, that are always local, and that are the ones that we don't have to have competition globally. And that's roles like plumbers, electricians, construction work. Those are all well sought after, well compensated professions, and those are ones that you can take closer looks at as well. But looking at this, let's go ahead and let's see one that we can hone in on. So we're looking at one, I'm looking at number 9 here. Number 9 has a significant salary. I noticed that the range is very tight in this instance. So it's a principal system engineer. So I know that a systems engineer is obviously, it's a technical role dealing with computer and technology. And principal is a very high level role to that, but I can see that obviously at $121,000 annual salary, that it's a rather lucrative one. So let's dig in a little bit deeper into this role to get an idea of what it means to get to this principal systems engineer. And actually, this is something else. With AI, we can be more contextual. The information that we're getting as a result, I can go in here and I can type in a question specifically and say, for a principal systems engineer, give me some information about the job role or what it takes to become one. But if you notice, it's also ranked number 9. So I can say for pound 9 or for 9, we'll just do it this way. What is the role progression? So what roles would you have to take on before getting to a principal engineer? And while we're at it, what are those salary ranges? And what this will do is go and gather some information about it here. It looks like it hasn't gathered it does have some information about salary rules. Okay. So we have 5 steps to get up to principal systems engineer. And we can see that we start with a junior systems engineer or associate systems engineer, those the entry level position. So this is something that we'll want to start to dive into a little bit, but we can take a look at what each one of these roles are to understand, is this a progressive path that we want to get on? So this gives us a little bit of insight. Again, this is less about the broad question, what do you want to do? And more now we're starting to narrow down and say, is this something that is fitting with my personality and lines up with what I'm capable of? So junior systems engineer to systems engineer, senior systems engineer, so on and so forth. So let's see what it would mean to get into an entry-level role of a junior systems engineer. Again, I'm just making a reference for number one because this was the last set of results that we received. What is the salary range? Since we didn't really get that one. And I'm going to put for my location because we've established our location is now McKinley, Texas. So this happens often. This is something when dealing with artificial intelligence. I asked a specific question as it pertains to as we scroll up, and you can scroll back and you see any of this contents as you're going through it. You can see that the junior systems engineer was what I was referencing with number one. As we can see, the response that I got, that was for a principal systems engineer. So we have to be just careful with the results that we get to make sure that they're in alignment. So I'm going to go ahead and just make sure that I'm going to say no for and I'll paste in junior systems engineer. There we go. And so it's responding back, and we can see for a junior systems engineer in McKinney, Texas, average range is typically 58 to 81,000. So this gives us an idea that getting into a junior systems engineer role, that kind of first step to getting all the way up to a principal systems engineer, we're looking at about a 58,000 from a starting with an average of about 73,000. So that progression through is going to be determinant based typically on education, certification, and tenure, how much time you've had on title, how much experience you've had. But let's see what our AI has to say about that. What is the educational requirements? So, yes, I'm likely to butcher the spelling, but as we can see, AI doesn't care so much. It understands what we're looking for. So as a junior systems engineer, we can see that they typically need a bachelor's degree in a relevant field, computer science, electrical engineering, or computer engineering. And then some certifications, depending on the specificity. It talks about let's say a Cisco certified network associate or a certified systems administrator. So let's talk a little bit about kind of the band so we can see what that progression looks like from that starting salary getting deeper in, and what it looks like to progress through. Let's see. And we can ask it questions that are broad. How many years will it take to progress to the next level? So progressing from a junior systems engineer to a systems engineer generally takes 2 to 4 years. So it is going to vary depending on your drive, depending on the location that you're in, and also depending on the company that you're working for. So you can see experience, the amount of quality, hands-on experience you've gained, performance, your ability to demonstrate all the things you've done in your role. So it gives an idea of what it would take to kind of get through and go do those things. Now, when you're looking at these roles, some of the things to consider too is what does this role do? What would you be doing as a junior systems engineer? In this role, what is my daily tasks? So we're going to ask it what our daily tasks are typically to get an idea of what it would mean to be a junior systems engineer. So we have system monitoring of computer systems, some troubleshooting, probably some break fix, system configuration. This would be obviously setting up systems, documentation, some user support, so a little bit of customer service in there as well. Network management, security management, project support, backup and recovery. So a lot of entry-level tasks, but across quite a wide spectrum in facilitating, I'm sure, servicing of an organization. So we have an idea of what those daily tasks are like. The question comes down to always would be another component of this is the work-life balance associated with a role like this, or in many of these roles. A lot of it comes down to we can ask it questions like work-life balance and see what it comes back with. And yes, it's saying, hey, would you like to sign in? Nah, I'd rather not. You can go ahead and answer my question anyway. So work-life balance for a junior systems administrator can vary depending on the company, and it's always going to be specific to the job and the organization that you're working with. You always want to pick a good company when doing it. But you have standard working hours. There are typically some on-call duties, and you can see that typically these are scheduled, and you'll have more than likely regular hours. There will be some remote work typical flexibility in these roles because you can typically facilitate a lot of those functions remotely. You'll have project deadlines, some professional development, which is always good, and company culture is always important to have a supportive company that does help you with that work-life balance. So it seems relatively good mix. Just something to note, obviously, with any of these jobs, especially ones that you have the ability to do remote work, there's always the chance that your employer could ask a lot of some of the work you're doing remotely, meaning some weekends or holidays or long hours. But in scenarios like this, typically with junior systems engineers, typically that delta time or that time outside of regular scheduled work hours is typically scheduled. So we have an idea now of a role. We have an idea of a potential career. We have idea of a little bit about what that function entails. Obviously, this may appeal to you. It may not appeal to you. And that's not really what this video is about. The video is about asking the questions and doing some research on some roles and jobs, some professions that may or may not fit your need. And this one may not. But it's up to you to really ask those questions and start to dig in a little bit deeper. And as you start to learn more about a job or a role or a profession, is then ask the questions of what is necessary, what would it be to get to that next step? By having these goals in mind, by having this end as an end goal for you, a target in which to go towards, we can move on to the next parts. In part 2, we're going to be talking about getting a job at an entry-level position. We're talking about getting that minimum wage job, but getting the right job that's going to give you the opportunity to fulfill the educational needs, the certification needs, the things that you will need to be able to do and perform in order to get into this entry-level career position. Your minimum wage job may not be the career that you hold on to long-term, but it's the one that you'll be able to leverage and utilize, if you pick the right one, to be able to facilitate your long-term goals. That's why it's so important to do the research now, understand at least the general profession and direction you want to head, so that this way you can make decisions now that'll drastically impact positively your financial future. If you found this information helpful, be sure to hit the like button, comment below with your thoughts, and subscribe to Innovation and Income for more financial wisdom. Together, let's innovate, invest, and build our future. Thanks for watching, and until next time, keep innovating.